Thank you for joining me again to read the Book of Mormon together. I love the Book of Mormon. It is a wonderful scripture that has inspired the faith of millions of people, and it is such a joy to me. Now, today we are reading 2 Nephi chapter 16. It is really an exciting, transformative chapter. If 2 Nephi 15 was a wake-up call, then 2 Nephi 16 is kind of like an earthquake, a spiritual earthquake, where we learn more about the overwhelming majesty and power and holiness of God and the effect that this profound encounter had on this prophet of Isaiah. And then also this powerful principle that those who are called to the greatest work must first be cleansed and prepared by the Lord. It is not easy to work for the Lord. He requires us to purify our hearts and to lay everything at the altar to worship Him. Let's go ahead and get started in reading this wonderful and fairly short chapter. Okay, the little italicized summary goes, Isaiah sees the Lord. Isaiah's sins are forgiven. He is called to prophesy. He prophesies of the rejection of the Jews of Christ's teachings. A remnant will return. Compare Isaiah 6. About 559 to 545 BC is when Nephi gave this reading to his children. Verse 1, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. And again, this is Nephi quoting Isaiah. Above it stood the seraphim. Each one had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. And one cried unto another, saying, Holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the posts of the door moved with a voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. And the smoke can sometimes be indicative of God's presence, like at Mount Sinai in the tabernacle in the wilderness. And so Grant Hardy, who I read from his commentaries, he said that here, perhaps emanating from the temple, there was smoke at the altar and incense. And Isaiah recognizes his unworthiness to be in the presence of the Lord and is cleansed by a symbolic gesture from a seraph. So this whole passage is about Isaiah being called of God and feeling unworthy and being cleansed. Verse 5, then said I, woe is unto me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For mine eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Isaiah is feeling this contrast between his sinful nature as a man and, of course, living in among other people of sin, and then the cleanliness and the glory of the Lord. Verse 6, then flew one of the seraphim unto me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with the tongs from off the altar. And he laid it upon my mouth and said, Lo, this has touched thy lips, and thine iniquity is taken away, and thy sin is purged. And I also heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send, and whom will go for us? Then I said, Here am I, send me. So Isaiah goes through this process of where he's being called, but he realizes just how unclean he is by just his common man sinfulness. And I think it's really interesting that one of the things that's focused on is the uncleanness of lips. I love the passage in James in the Bible that talks about if a man sin not with his mouth, then he is a sinless man, but that the tongue worketh fire and a world of iniquity. So our mouths, our words, is often the seedbed of iniquity. If we can control the way we speak, we can be so much more pure before the Lord. I know it's something that I've had to work on for a lot of years. It's just more awareness in how I speak. I think most all of us have temptations to say things that are not in alignment with Christ's character. And it takes, I think, a certain amount of a lot of humility and willingness to place even our words and the way we speak on the altar before God and say, cleanse my mouth, cleanse the words that I use. I will speak things that will build thy kingdom and that will build the people around me rather than tear down and destroy or confuse. Let me build and create something holy in the words that I speak. I see it as an act of consecration to say, I could say all kinds of things, but I'm going to use my mouth in thy service, God. And clearly Isaiah is going through some kind of consecrating and cleansing of his power to speak. And maybe that's symbolic for all of his power to act as well. Verse 9, and he said, go and tell his people, hear ye indeed, but they understand not, and see ye indeed, but they perceive not. Isn't that the truth? That people don't hear and don't see what they don't want to hear or don't want to see. That a prophet can be telling people what they need to hear and see, but if they don't want to, they won't. And it is, I think, just an undeniable fact of science within the field of perception that we will not and cannot see what we don't want to, what we really don't want to. And as a therapist, of course, I see that all the time. What someone is not ready or willing to confront or see in their character or in their life, they simply won't until the readiness appears, until they are mature enough, or they have the resources, or they're safe enough, or they're willing. They're just not going to see it. So we have a great ability to be blind as humans, but God is calling to us, and he would like us to become unblind and to sacrifice our blindness on the altar of willingness to follow him and to see the things that he would have us see. Verse 10, make the heart of this people fat and make their ears heavy and shut their eyes, lest they see with their ears and hear with their ears. Lest they see with their eyes and hear with their ears and understand with their heart and be converted and healed. So I don't think that this is, if the commentary I've heard on this before, I don't have it in front of me, is that God is not physically making people not be able to see or hear, but it's more describing what they are doing. So scriptural language can be a little bit clunky sometimes, or poetic, whatever you want to call it. Then said I, Lord, how long? And he said, until the cities be wasted without inhabitant, and the houses without man, and the land be utterly desolate. And the Lord have removed men far away, and there shall be a great forsaking in the midst of the land. So it sounds to me like he's saying people will be blind and deaf to the truth until there's desolation. And boy, isn't that often the case, that we have to be compelled to be humble until there's real tragedy? When will we be willing to listen? Verse 13, but yet there shall be a tenth, and they shall return, and shall be eaten as a teal tree, and as an oak whose substance is in them when they cast their leaves. So the holy seed shall be the substance thereof. And yeah, I actually asked Gemini what this verse means because it sounded like word salad to me. So not that Gemini is God, heavens no, but nonetheless it can be helpful. So it says that in 2 Nephi 6:13, to understand it, it's crucial to consider its context, both in Isaiah and how Nephi uses it. Here's a breakdown of its meaning. But yet there shall be a tenth, and they shall return and shall be eaten. This refers to a remnant or a small portion of the people, Israel, Judah, who will survive a devastating judgment or scattering. Then the next part, shall be eaten or devoured in some translations, implies that even this remnant will go through further trials, suffering, and destruction. It suggests a process of severe sifting or culling. And then this next phrase, as a teal tree and as an oak whose substance is in them when they cast their leaves. A teal tree or a terebinth tree and oak, these are strong-willed, long-lived trees. Okay, we're strong-willed, I can see that. And then the next phrase, whose substance is in them when they cast their leaves. This is the key imagery. When these trees shed their leaves in the winter, they appear dead and barren. However, their life and substance, the living essence, the root, the core remains with them. They are not truly dead. They contain the potential for new life. They will bud again in the spring. So the holy seed shall be the substance thereof is the next phrase. The holy seed, this refers to the righteous remnant of Israel, the covenant people who remain faithful or who will eventually be purified. And then the next phrase, shall be the substance thereof. Just as the tree retains its life-giving substance, even when outwardly barren, this holy seed, or the righteous few, will be the enduring, living essence of Israel. They are the core that survives judgment, from whom the nation will eventually revive and flourish. In essence, the verse means, even after severe judgments and devastations that will consume most of the wicked, a small righteous remnant or a holy seed of God's covenant people will endure. Like a seemingly barren tree in winter that still holds in its roots, that holds life in its roots, this remnant will be the living core from which Israel will eventually be renewed, flourish, and fulfill its divine destiny. It's a prophecy of bold destruction and ultimate hope for a future restoration through a purified people. Nephi includes this verse to emphasize to his people and us that despite the judgments and scattering he foresaw, God would preserve a righteous line, and his covenant with Israel would ultimately be fulfilled through this holy seed. Okay, thank you, AI, for that help. I hope you've enjoyed this chapter. Again, ultimately, it's a message of hope, as most all of Isaiah's work is, a warning and hope. And my hope is that we, even though sometimes we might feel small and like we're about to be snuffed out as people who are trying very hard to follow Jesus Christ and to be humble, that God ultimately will help us and save us. And we can remember that with hope and joy and excitement. And I look forward to seeing you next time when we read again.